All right, I did start the recording, and that means the video will start with me saying I started the recording. We're about 3 minutes past, so I'll get going, and we're here to talk about Avocado 1.43. Now, it looks like we've got almost 30 people in the room, so still a big crowd, even though it's the summer. I think everyone on this call knows how it goes from here. We are talking about releasing 1.43, which will go to your sandbox first, and you can talk to your project manager about the exact timing of that. Sandbox time is for you to test, it's for you to play, it's for you to try out new features before you move them into your production environment. When you're ready to go, you're going to let us know and we'll move it into your live environment. Before I jump into features and changes in 1.43, I do want to point out that there is a new build of Cantaloupe available now. That's a Cantaloupe on your screen. If you're not sure what Cantaloupe is the piece of software that manages your event logs and tracks your access in and out of your buildings. And for some of you, that means it controls gates. For others, it just means you're hooked up to door kickers or to card swipe machines. Some of you are already on 1.1.6. If you're the sort of person in your association who deals with this, check in with your project manager. We'll get you the install instructions, the details on what this changes. One thing I will point out is Cantaloupe is a separate piece of software from Avocado. So some of the changes in Cantaloupe you'll see when we update Cantaloupe. Others you'll see when we update Avocado. And really it's once you get the combination of the two that all of the features and changes will become available. So let's jump right in. We do have a couple of really large features today. I've done my very best to explain them, but I will point out that they're large and they'll take some playing around with to get used to. So we really wanted to get this to you while it was still summertime and you had time to play around with it, because we think this is a pretty powerful and interesting feature for your program pricing. So I'll call this advanced program fee control, I suppose. But really we're talking about the introduction of a thing called a price group into price level. And so what this lets you do is it gives you greater control over the pricing of your programs. So we're not talking about memberships here, just programs. And the ways that it gives you more control is that first, it potentially, if you want, moves the pricing off of the program and onto the instance. So up until now, all of your pricing has been program-based, meaning each instance would charge the same price. They simply had different schedules or at different locations. Now, if you wish, you can move the pricing onto the instance and offer different pricing sets for different instances. Additionally, it'll let you set different prices for different membership types, ages, or combinations of age ranges and membership types. So right now, when you're setting your pricing, you're on the program, and you're able to set member and non-member pricing. And a lot of you do that. You use both of those. Pricing for your members, pricing for your non-members. Really, this is taking that to another level of detail. So you can move it on to the instance, and you can not only give members and non-members different prices, but you can actually give different prices to different types of members. Maybe your adult annual members pay price X, whereas your child and youth members pay price Y. Right? And so that can be an age range, a subscription type, or a combination of the two. Now, if someone qualifies for both, right, maybe your age ranges, I don't know, partially overlap or some combination, makes it such that somebody could apply for two different prices, the system is going to give them the lowest price, which I think is probably what they would want, and hopefully it's what we would want too. The last thing I'll point out, and this is important, is this doesn't require any change from you. If you are perfectly happy with all of the pricing on your programs, and you don't want the pricing on your programs to change, you don't have to do anything. You can leave it set as is. But if you do use this new way of pricing, it will override your existing program settings. Another reason to play around with this in the sandbox quite a bit before you roll it into your live environment. You might want to understand how this new pricing is interacting with your old settings. Oh, so I did want to make this a little visual. So what we've given you is the ability to set a bunch of different price levels on any given instance or program. And those get grouped together into a thing called a price group. You then assign the price group to the instance. And one of the reasons that this is useful to you is it allows you to set up a price group once and then assign it to lots of instances. Currently, if you have a whole bunch of different programs and they all share pricing, you're setting the pricing on each one of those programs. This lets you set up a potentially complicated group of prices and then reuse that on any instances or programs where it makes sense. So for instance, I could have a price group where I've got different prices for different ages. Each of those is a price level. I put all of those into a single group, so a group of prices. And then I tell the instance, okay, charge these prices, use this price group. I did see a question pop up from Nazim. Nazim, I'm just going to try to find where that pop-out went. Oh, there we go. Okay, perfect. Can we restrict membership type or age or just pricing? So it's a good question. So Azim's question is really, are we just talking about pricing or are we talking about whether or not you can register? At this stage, this is just about pricing for the instance. Now that could be $0 pricing, but this tool isn't about restricting registration in any way. Animations out of sync. All right, I guess this is a teaser. So next up is another big change for programs. And this one we're calling continuous registration. And I point out that that's what we're calling it because there are a lot of things that you guys call it. Different users have different terms. I think some of you call this continuous registration. Some of you call it perpetual registration. Some of you call it rollover registration. What it is it's the ability to take registrations in an instance and automatically roll over, perpetuate, or renew them into the next instance. And again, quite a bit of functionality here. So you're going to want to take a moment to understand it and play around with it in your sandbox. So the way that this works is, let's say we have a set of instances set up. Okay, maybe I've got kickboxing for September, kickboxing for October, kickboxing for November. I don't know why I showed kickboxing. You're now going to be able to link these together. And you do that with a simple setting right on the instance. So right on the September kickboxing instance, I link it to October kickboxing, which I link to November kickboxing, and so forth. And I can keep building that chain as time goes on. I don't have to build it all at once. I can keep adding instances to this chain. Now, suppose I've got a registration in the first instance, the first link in the chain. What's going to happen is, as we near the end of September, the system can be set up to automatically generate a new registration for me, this time in the October instance. So it's not really changing the way registrations work. It's still one registration to one instance. What the system is doing is it's generating the next registration to go with the next instance in the chain. And so as we approach the end of October, we get a registration for November, and so on. And now at this point, mid-November, maybe I hadn't created any more instances. Remember, I can keep extending this chain. So I can add more links, and I can make a January instance and a February instance. And we can continue to roll over or renew or perpetuate registrations into each one of those instances. Now that was kind of high level. There is some detail in there. One thing I will point out at this stage is that you have control over when those registrations renew. And if this is starting to sound familiar, it should. This is exactly how your continuous membership rollover works. When it comes to rolling over your memberships, you tell the system how many days before the end of the membership to renew. So for many of you, that's 7 days or 14 days or 1 month. It works the exact same way here. So I might tell the system, hey, 7 days before the end of this instance, before the end of September, I want you to generate the October registration. 7 days before the end of October, you're going to generate the November. But what we did here was actually give you a deeper level of control than you have with memberships. You get to set this on an instance by instance basis. So it's not one registration rollover deadline for your entire system. You can actually set a different value on each one of these. So maybe in September, you want to renew 10 days out. But in October, you want to renew 5 days out, and so on and so forth. We've also added these fields to the instance uploader. So if you're thinking, oh, great, it's another field I've got to populate, that is going to be available in the instance uploader sheet. So it is just a matter of adding whatever your default value is in there when you're creating your instances. If you want to use this on instances you've already made, remember you can always export those out of the instance uploader, add this value, and pop them back in. There are even more details to this. So we did make this attendance compatible. So for those of you who are using attendance, you'll know there's a couple of different ways to set up attendance, and this is compatible with all of those. It's going to allow you to enter in or establish an attendance pattern, which is then automatically applied to each new registration. The idea being, suppose you're using this in childcare. You have a child who comes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You establish the Monday, Wednesday, Friday pattern, and then every month or 2 weeks or however your instances work, every time a new registration appears, each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday will have expected attendance. Just like the existing attendance, you'll be able to modify those after the fact if there's a day the person's not there. You'll probably have more questions about this, but I'll leave it there for now. I'd encourage you to read the release notes on this. Send me questions if you have them, and I'll keep updating those release notes to make this more clear if needed. A couple of quicker ones, but important to some of you. So on the membership card, we've given you the ability to customize the tagline. So this, oops, I guess my highlight didn't show up. The tagline here is building healthy communities. It's the line that appears right underneath your location name. By default, that will stay building healthy communities, but if anybody wants to do something other than build a healthy community, they may now change that. I've given you details how to change that in the release notes, but if you need a hand, reach out to support.
There's just a quick question there, Jordan, about the rollover ending.
Absolutely. Is this about how we cancel or withdraw from a program?
How do we stop the rollover?
Yeah, perfect. Good question, Jeannie. So you are able to enter in a registration cancel date, and the system will not perform the rollover after that date. So anytime that rollover engine runs, it's going to check how many days before the end of the instance has this person's rollover date passed, and then only roll over in case they have. I don't know if I have that field listed in the release notes. I'll look that up and get that into the text for you. So sorry, good question though, Jeannie, thank you. Back on membership cards, so you can change that highlight text. We have one other visual change. So on the portal, there is a splash screen or a login screen. And right now that shows this image. It's a couple of happy kids. Well, it's one very smiling kid and one sort of bemused child. You may now customize that image if you like. That is a static image. If you're comfortable working with that file and you've worked with it before, you'll simply follow the instructions in the release notes in the user manual. But if you want to reach out to support for a hand updating that file, feel free. There are more details in the user manual. But just as a quick test, so that's what it appears as behind your photo. If you happen to choose that you thought that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was the right image for your YMCA, that's what it would look like. But you're probably better off with the happy children. Oh, and there's my highlight. See, I did try to highlight building healthy communities for you, but it popped up at the end. Okay, so for those of you using facility booking, I hope you know that there have been a string of improvements to that module, that functionality lately, and those are continuing and will continue. This right here is the addition of notes and a buffer time on bookings. So now notes might seem like a simple thing, but we've actually given them a lot of power. So when you're in your facility bookings now, you'll see an option to add notes. And a note isn't just text. It actually has some function here. So what you'll actually see is what you see in green here. So when I'm adding a note, it says, when do we want to add this note for? And it can be before the booking or after the booking. And you'll see that I can change how many minutes this note is for. And then if you like, you can set that note to block the calendar. So the intention, the original intention, was that this would get used for things like setup or cleanup time in between bookings, before booking, after a booking. Right? You can leave notes about what activity has to take place and block the calendar so that a booking doesn't take place immediately before it. Maybe you rent out your pool in 1 hour increments, but maybe you want a 15-minute gap in between those bookings. This is how you could achieve that. Now, this particular booking has 2 notes on it, one before and one after, you can see. One is set to blocking, meaning the calendar can't be booked between 2:30 and 3 p.m. But the after note is not blocking. You see there's no check over on the left there. And so that means this calendar, this facility could be booked from 4 to 4:30. So 2 types of notes, but a couple of neat pieces of functionality built in there for you. There is no limit to the number of notes you can add on the screen. There is no reasonable limit, I should say. Second piece for today on facility booking is the ability to bundle multiple facility bookings at once. So again, the aim here is often about blocking off space in the facility booking calendar so things aren't overbooked. What this functionality is going to allow you to do is to book multiple facilities for the same period of time on a single booking. So suppose you rent out lanes in your pool individually using facility booking. Instead of having to book lane A, book lane B, book lane C, this would allow you to, if you like, book lanes A, B, and C on one booking, from 8 to 9 a.m. or whatever your time is. There are a couple of restrictions on how you set that up. They have to share a parent facility, and when you're searching for the booking, you have to include the parent facility. This is a little screen grab from that booking window that you see when you're booking a facility. And here I've got 2 racquetball courts booked on a single booking. So this would make one booking with 2 courts on it. Lastly, and totally unrelated to facility booking, we have added support for the Sage 300 file format. I don't imagine that means anyone's rushing to change their accounting system, but know that there is now support for Sage should you require it. We do have a small number of bugs this time. I'll leave the details in the tickets in the release notes for those of you who filed those. And so, lastly, what's in development? And we continue with the standard disclaimer, which is that no matter what I'm about to say, development is hard. It happens in stages. Sometimes it's a little unpredictable, and it's still hard. So with that said, these are some of the things that we are currently working on. First, we're looking at some batch membership renewal improvements. I know most of you I know are using automated continuous memberships, but many still have a use case for the older style batch membership renewals. We're making some improvements there. We're making some changes and improvements to the membership purchase flow through the portal, and for some of you integrating to things like OpenY. We're continuing to improve facility booking. Next up is a concept of a facility booking contract. There'll be a lot more explanation on that when that comes out. But in general, in facility booking, I hope what you see we're doing is we're moving towards easier and better management of very large numbers of facility bookings. So allowing you to group things together, allowing you to edit in bulk, now introducing the idea of an ongoing contract. So that's the direction facility booking is heading. You'll see some changes and improvements to the financial assistance flow. I'm making that a little bit simpler for users. And some continued support for Cantaloupe 1.1.6. And that is it. So that's it for now. We will see you next month. There are a couple of big features in there that I know you will be setting up. So please do reach out to us as you're working through that setup. If there's anything that's not clear in the notes, if I need to provide any extra info, let me know and we'll keep those updated. I'll also point out that we released a lot of additional features and fixes as patches to Avocado 1.42. There were some pieces of functionality that we moved up. They would have been in 4.3, but we got them to you early in 1.42. So if you're a little out of the loop, if you haven't checked back on those Avocado 1.42 release notes, do. because there are some good items in there. All right, that's it for now. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thanks, guys.
Who's going to be last?
Never.
Still recording.
Yeah, I hit stop.